Welcome, everyone. This is Custom Boss GPTs. We are part of the bigger AI in Education global network. We're dedicated to sharing resources and information about Custom Boss GPTs, apps, and this emerging world of the common theme is really faculty building it, designing it, and implementing it, faculty and staff, to improve higher education and explore the new possibilities. And we've been gathering and showcasing educators since July 2024. Today we'll be hearing from José Antonio Bowen. He has been leading innovation and change for over 40 years at Stanford, Georgetown, University of Southampton, Miami University, and president of Goucher College. He's worked as a musician, and his work was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize in Music. And he has written over 100 articles, scholarly articles and books, including Cambridge Companion to Conducting and Teaching Naked, winner of the Ness Award for Best Book on Higher Education. Most recently, he wrote with G. Edward Watson, Teaching with AI, Practical Guide to a New Era of Human Learning, a book which I know has been foundational for many of us here and talked about in AI book clubs around the world, including one at the City University of New York. So we've invited some that were in the book club, and a co-host Dominic Di Tommaso. We are so excited to hear from you and hear about your strategies in building prompts, bots, and meta prompts. And if no one knows what meta prompts are, we're going to hear about that too. Please join me in welcoming José Antonio Bowen to our group. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm assuming you can hear me. I'm thrilled to be here. So I've put in the chat the link to my website. I have a new tab there that just says AI, and there's a whole ton of resources that I won't go over today. But if you go down to AI resources, you can see the slides, although we're going to do about the last 10 pages of that 100 pages of slides. I just realized it was since I update every day, it was too complicated to have like 15 different presentations and all, right? So I have one list of citations and slides that I do keep up. All right, so let me start with where I always start. So just so AI, just as ways of thinking, AI is changing work. Not much you can do. Although yesterday we got a study that said that most Americans seem okay with AI replacing human jobs. It starts at about 30%, but when you tell them that actually AI could do this better and faster and cheaper, then it jumps to 60%. The only jobs that Americans don't seem to want AI to do are things like, caregiving, right? The kind of the human things, and so those are moral objections. But the rest of it is interesting. So, but that's happening. We should be more concerned about AI changing thinking, right? Cognitive offloading is already a part of our lives, right? It happens with your phone. GPS is a great example, right? So we don't yet know if AI is going to be more like GPS or a compass or like a map, because a map makes you smarter. A compass does not. Right, a compass, you learn to rely on it, and you forget which side of the tree the moss grows, and all the other kinds of things you were doing. And so GPS and the compass are other examples of cognitive offloading, and so we got to be careful of that with AI. But we do know that AI is changing average. It's the new baseline. If students can only do work that's as good as AI, they won't get jobs. We also know AI is changing relationships and communications in some really weird ways. That study also came out a few weeks ago that, right, 50% of women and 70% of men would be okay dating an AI. Weird, I don't know. But it is going to reduce the birth rate. It's changing creativity in weird ways because, right, what do you call a human who hallucinates? An artist, right? So hallucinations a bug in one place, but it's actually how we become creative. And AI, of course, is a form of labor now. So you are an AI boss. And so that's where I start. Just ways of framing what AI is doing to humans. More relevant to today is that AI is what's now been called hyper-personalization. I don't like personalized because humans are, but it's customized, right? So things like birthday cards, right? So if you don't want to go to the grocery store and send a generic birthday card, you can now go to TouchNote and put a picture of your friend and whatever, and you get a personal, right? And you're going to print and send on demand. The same for like bedtime stories. If you haven't tried having ChatGPT, or actually I think Hume and Sesame are better at voice, have them tell your 8-year-old a bedtime story with their name and they're the hero, right? So customization. So the new the new degrees that are coming that are being delivered by AI will be super customized. Now, in the old days, customization was expensive, and so you had, right, you could either get, right, in business we talk about strategy, right, so that Walmart is low cost, but they sacrifice non-conforming customers, right? Expensive products have customized. Well, now with AI, you can have customization, and so for classrooms, I could make a bot just for you, right? You didn't take calculus last semester, so I've made a bot for you, right? And it doesn't take me very long, and you feel great about that. So let me start with some assignments, then we'll talk about how to build these bots. So writing, right? Prompting is writing. So people complain about writing and they won't do the Okay, so how about have them journal with a bot? So notice that the prompt on the screen, right? And when I say bot, we're going to do a lot of this today. A bot is really a prompt plus a knowledge base. The technical part of this is about 5%. That's going to be easy. The hard part is what's on the screen, is thinking about carefully writing instructions, right? This is critical thinking. This is writing. It's one of the reasons why, as Casandra knows, right, that having students create bots is such a great assignment because it's hard, right? So here, my prompt is, you are a kind, insightful assistant. Give students the chance to reflect, discover their own insights. So you ask students to reflect on something they've learned, and then you consider the student's response, then ask a series of supportive and insightful follow-up questions, etc. So I can either give the students this prompt, or I can build this into a custom bot, which I'll show you how to do. But the point is that the student now, my assignment is I want you to write 500 words a day in the bot. So technically, all they're doing is chatting, prompting, right? But they're really writing and thinking. And so they write a few words, they write a couple of sentences, and the bot says, that's interesting. Can you tell me more? Can you think more deeply? What are your assumptions, right? So it's like having a writing tutor over your shoulder, and then the writing is actually in the bot or in the prompt. If you do this just as a prompt, then you have to have them save the PDF or something so you can see it. But if you do it as a bot, the advantage is now I can just go to the back end of the bot and say, oh, let's see what the students did. And so that's one of the reasons why we want to do these custom bots. So I said that AI was changing average. So my general advice is that the best way around cheating is to just raise standards, right? If students are only doing work that AI could do, as if they could cheat, then they won't get a job anyway, right? Because no one's going to hire them to do something AI can do. On the other hand, AI can't do a lot of things too. So what are the things that only humans and AI together can do? And so that's what when I think about assignments, I think about, okay, you can use AI because if you didn't, you couldn't do this. And if you just use AI, you couldn't do it either. So this is inspired by Mike Caulfield's deep background, which I will put in the chat in a minute. But I am going to start by having you look. So I'm going to put so here is the complete assignment in the chat, right? So I'll just leave this on the screen. But if you want to go look at the whole thing. So the first thing I do to students is I say, okay, let's create a Word or a Google Doc, a shared Google Doc. What are some controversial claims, right? Things that you want to know the answer to, right? Is Trump in the Epstein files? Does Tylenol cause autism? Should you ban cell phones in school, right? Whatever it is, right? You come up with a list of claims, right? Is it true that is Portland burning to the ground? Is there going to be peace in the Middle East? I mean, whatever, right? You make a series of claims. And then you say, okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to write a prompt that will help verify the facts and sources in these claims, right? So if I want to know, can I get measles from my dog, right? How would I know? I could Google that, but I want to know, and I could use ChatGPT, but I might not get the right answer. It might hallucinate. So what would you want a smart set of interns to do, right? Um, so, so then I have them write a prompt, and I tell them it's hard to do in less than 800 or 1,000 words, right? And so I get maybe it's okay. So come back to class on Wednesday. And Bonnie, I got this idea from listening to that podcast. This is a new one, right? So then I say, okay, so come back Wednesday. And on Wednesday, I say, okay, so now I want you to pick a prompt from our list of shared prompts. And then I want you to test I guess so get into pairs, and you and a partner, I want you to use your two different prompts on this claim and then see what you get, right? Did it give you a table? Did it give you did it say, oh yes, there's cause, but there's correlation but not causation. No, this data is fake news, right? Whatever. What did it do? And so they test, so it's a contest, right? Who wrote the best prompt to sort for this information? Right, and then I give them Mike Caulfield's actual GPT prompt, which I am going to post here. But notice, so this doesn't work as well as his actual prompt, as he says, which is okay, because then I say, okay, so now try this, and I give them the link that I've given you there. And if you're on my website with the assignments, you'll see just click on the link, it's in there. And then I say, so what do you think he did better? I haven't showed him the actual prompt. This is his GPT is a custom bot, so you can't see the prompt, right? So you just see this magic happens. So I say, okay, so is his prompt better? What did it do? Could you make your prompt better to do that, right? And then I have them think, okay, so now I have them so now they're thinking, right? They're doing a lot of critical thinking. They're writing, yeah, they're making a prompt, but they're making a prompt that's going to make visible what it is that you need to do in order to do critical thinking, right? And then I might actually show them the Mike's actual prompt, right, which is 3,000 words, which is also there linked on my page. And they go, wow, okay. So then I say, okay, so here's the real assignment. So the real assignment is write a critical thinking process for yourself, right? This could be an outline, it could be bullet points, it could be an essay, right? It could be a PowerPoint slide deck, I don't care, right? But if you wanted to know, is this true? Could I verify this? What would you have to do? And where would AI play a part in that, right? What Mike calls critical doing, which I love, right? And then I have them reflect on this. And so they might create a bot as part of this, but what they're really doing is making visible the process of how they do their thinking. So that's an assignment that has them create the prompt, which then could be a bot, but it also uses a bot. Another example of raising standards is related to creativity, right? So here, right, the old assignment, this is from one of my old marketing professors, would say, come up with 50 products that you could sell at Trader Joe's, and that was the assignment, right? And so now it's like, okay, that's dumb because AI can come up with 500 of these. So I ask AI, so ask AI. The problem, though, is gluten-free Brazilian cheese bread mix already a Trader Joe's product? I don't know, right? I don't know. You'd have to check that. So now what I've got to do is I've got to take this list and I've got to iterate. I've got to improve. I've got to make sure these don't already exist. Then I could do a packaging logo. How big a package should it be? What's it cost, right? What's the price I should do? Could I market test? I could market test with AI. You're a 35-year-old soccer mom in Fargo. Would you pay $3.99 for a 14-ounce bag of spicy mango jerky? Right? And then I can run that same experiment all over the country and get really granular data, right? What's the supply chain? What's the margin? So now the real assignment is come up with 10 fully costed, fully tested, good ideas for products. And I do that in the same time frame that I would have done the previous assignment, right? So those are examples of raising standards and assignments. Another example that I'm going to talk about as a bot today, so is this critical thinking support bot. So there are a number of people doing really good work on this. And so let me see if I can find the, where did I, yes, so I'm gonna give you the prompt itself in the, so if you click on the link there, you'll go to, again, you're back to my page. And so there you can see the entire prompt for critical thinking, right? Now, what I'm going to give to students is I'm going to put this into a bot, and then the students are going to, so I say, so before you write your essay, I want you to give the bot your argument. What is it you want to argue for, right? You want to argue, and what's the sources that you want? So from the student's point of view, it's just, okay, I want to write an essay that says that AI is bad for jobs using biblical sources, right? And the AI will say, are there other kinds of sources? Are there other, right? Have you considered this? Whatever, it'll go through this. What I want you to look at is the prompt itself, right? So you can see, and I'll actually switch screens. So again, for the students, I'd give this to them as a completed bot, but for you, right? So there's the prompt, right? And if you want to see it as a custom bot, you can just click there. But I'm showing you this because to me, the hard part, as I think you've probably guessed, is the critical, right? The writing of the prompt, the writing of the instructions. So here you have it, right? So the role and experience, kind, patient, intellectually rigorous professor of critical thinking. Great. What's the goal? Help students identify hidden assumptions, challenge conventional wisdom, uncover mistaken data, make sure contradictory evidence is considered, right? I saw in the questions, how do I get more reliable information from out of your AI? Well, you've got to make long lists. So the good news is AI never gets tired, right? You can tell it to quadruple check. You can say, here are the 50 things I want you to check, right? I often say that, right, when I'm writing a custom bot prompt, I think, what would I tell my TAs? And then I think, but I would tell my TAs a tiny fraction of this because, right, they're human. They can only hold a couple of ideas. But the AI can say, here are the 50 things to look out for, and it's fine. Then I have to say something about the task, right? Examine my words, arguments, and reasoning, look for intellectual mistakes, etc. Then the process, right? So where do you start? So the first thing is, hi, what do I want you to say? Where could I improve? What is the process, right? And notice that there's some dumb stuff in here, right? There's stuff like do not overwhelm me with too much information, right? Ask me if I want more, right? And so you can take this prompt. I'm going to allow you, right? You can just copy and paste this whole thing into a Word document. And then you can, right, based upon your discipline, right, eliminate the things that you don't want and keep the things that you do want. But I think the right role and experience, goal, task, process are what you want to create this kind of right back and forth bot. And then I have longer and shorter prompts there, right? So the first thing that I'd suggest is that you spend some time. I don't have enough time to give you, if I'd give you 15 minutes if I had, right? To write your own prompt, because this is harder than it seems, right? Again, the amount of detail, and this one isn't that long. If you go to my there's one of my, I have like thousands of words of prompts, even if the output is simple. So I'll give you one example. So for creativity, if I don't want to read through 5,000 Trader Joe's products, I still want it to create 5,000 Trader Joe's. So I say, create 5,000 new ideas for Trader Joe's products. Then test them, make sure that they're actually unique and new by looking at old frequent flyer, what is it? You know what it's called. Whatever the rag at the Trader Joe's, the flyer thing. And then pick the 10 best, or maybe I even tell it, what are things that are really unique, that have been successful, that are highly likely to be original and fearless flyer, thank you, right? And then, right, give me the 10 best ideas. Now, of course, there's some risk because you're letting AI pick the 10 best rather than you, but you probably couldn't look through 5,000. But my point is that I often want the AI to do lots of work and then limit it, right? I do the same thing when I'm shopping, right? Make a list of the 50,000, best hoses for a garden that are right right these requirements, and then look at reviews and pick the best 20, and then test those 20 again, whatever. I give it so that structure dramatically increases the results and the ability to get consistent answers, but I have to write them down. All right. So let me stop there for a sec, and because I think, right, the writing of the prompt is the hard bit. And actually, before I do that, let me give you one more. So if I go to, so if you go, I'm going to simulations and games, which is again also under that tab. I'll put it here in the chat, although it's just okay. So here I have another simulation, which is another one that I would suggest that you try. So again, I'll show you as a bot in a minute, but I'm going to show you the back end because you want to know how to make these things, right? So again, what I would suggest you do, and what I initially do, is I would take this prompt, and you'll see it's a pretty long prompt, and I'd take that whole prompt, so I've just copied it. I would then copy it and paste it. And so what I suggest that you do is what I just did. Copy that whole prompt, and then open a Word document, and then paste it into a Word document so that you can then play with it as a prompt. Now, if you want to play the game, you take it and you go to, right, Chat GPT, right, I go to New Chat, and I drop the prompt in, I hit Return, and then it will do its magic, right? And so if I want to just play the game, then I have to go play the game. And so this is a game where I won't tell you the origin of this. This is my father who thinks he could fix the economy if he were president. And so I said, okay, try it. Okay, so it's it's the year 2000, and so I'm going to say okay. So I didn't notice it's asked me I want to be 2004. Okay, so then it tells me what the political situation is. It tells me what the economic situation is. And it asks me what I want to do, right? It tells me what I can't do, right? Some things that, that's new, that's interesting, okay. That didn't happen last time, okay. Because it's not supposed to give me hints unless I ask for it. So I want to close the IRS, right? And it should tell me, right? So you should, it's funny. So I'm right. The new ChatGPT right has this router model, so it thinks I want a real answer. So I probably would tell it to not be quite so smart, but you can see what it's doing. So I would play the game, but what I'd really do is drop that prompt into a Word document, and then adjust it, right, for whatever, because you want to do something else. The other, and I'm going to also show you here, let's see, here. So on this same page that I put in the last thing I left in the chat, there's also a template down here, simulation prompt. So this is not just for custom bots, but for simulations, but that's a pretty good use of custom bots. So again, here's the template, right? I can tell it I want it to create an interactive game, teach this content, right? Notice I start with my goal, right? How I want you to act, what's the personality, what do you do at the start? Do I want it to calibrate to their knowledge, begin the game, play the game, and how does the game end, right? So that's specifically for simulations, right? And it's based upon the prompt, the presidential simulation game that I've given you. So my view is that 95% of the work is what's on the screen, right? I have to think about what I want to do. I have to then write instructions. I have to think about, where might students go wrong? So, for example, with the presidential game, right, I gave it to my father, but I forgot to say, don't let you do things that are illegal. So when he tried to close the IRS, it let him. It's like, okay, don't let, right? I had to tell it, okay. And then it started to give too many hints, right? So when you test it, so a lot of the questions I saw, right, when you test it on some friends, test it on some willing students, and then go back and say, aha. So then you will go and you will add further instructions. Don't do that. Do this, right? Only give hints if I get stuck. In fact, if I go back up here, I can find those instructions, right? There it is. Do not allow me to propose action which is not constitutionally or legally possible for the president. And then notice I gave it an example, right? Because it does better with examples. Point out if my actions, right? Do not make suggestions unless I get stuck, right? There's that. So those were both additions that I didn't do in the first version, right? Because I had to play it a little bit, right? And then once I assess possible suggestions, then I had to figure out how to end it, right? Repeat the process, right? And then until I want or say stop, right? I say I want to stop. And then I had, well, when I'm done, summarize what I've done as the president and compare my simulated performance to what actually happened, right? So those are all additions. I didn't start with all of this. Okay, so I will shut up for a minute and say, so what I'd love for you to do is to write a prompt right now to create a game, a simulation, a tutor, whatever it is you want, based upon one of those models, and ask me questions if there's anything that because I do talk too fast. All right, so let's see. There's the Q&A. What do I got? Prompts. Any question? You can just drop in the chat. I'm looking at the chat.
We just have a question, but it's more about the idea in the book rather than about some prompts.
No questions. There's other, if again, depending on your discipline. Here's one for a business finance simulation. Actually, I first did this when I was in China, and so it was for a Chinese business, and then I came back and made it more generic. It's not quite as long, right? The game should take 15 minutes to play, right? There are kinds of that. I added that because the first version of the game was like an hour. It's like, okay, that's too long for class. So you won't.
Mark.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jose. Yeah, Mark has an interesting comment, question. I've seen this too. Mark says that when he puts the prompt to ChatGPT versus creating a bot, he's seeing different results. And on the mobile, ChatGPT with audio is also different and chatty, and wondering what your experience has been.
Yeah, so the reason for that is because you're using different models, right? So ChatGPT 5, which is really wonderful for beginners because you don't have to know whether it's reasoning, right? It picks the model for you, but it often picks wrong, right? So if you're using the mobile version, so depending on which model you're using, you get radically different results because they're thinking differently. So another advantage of a custom bot is that I can then pick the model I want students to use, and that will give me more consistency because then I can test it on that model. But yeah, if you test it on Claude and then the student uses, so that's another reason why, giving students the prompt, which again, 2 years ago it's like, here's a prompt. And right, my joke is that, right, how did Captain Kirk beat the Kobayashi Maru? Sorry, non-Trekkies, but you should know this, right? How does Captain Kirk beat the Kobayashi Maru test, right? Nobody? Yes, he cheats. So the way he cheats is he alters the program, right? He goes in the night before and he changes the program so that he can win. So if I give you this prompt, if I copy and paste this prompt into the chat, or right, I send you an email with the prompt, you can then alter it. And so then that will also change your experience. And so I don't want that. So one of the reasons I want to build a custom bot, and again, you've already seen Mike Caulfield's, is because then I can hide the prompt, right? Let's see. So there's a whole series of right, stress testing a business plan, role playing. I want you to be, Mark Cuban. I want you to be Socrates. Those things are also useful and helpful for students. So now what I want to do is teach you how to build the actual custom bot. So to me, the most important thing is. This is all you have to know. So the technology here is about 5% of this. The hard part is what you see on the screen, right? A custom bot is a prompt that you're going to hide. Now, right, there is some advantage to being transparent. I'm generally a proponent of being transparent with students. I want students to know what the prompt is and what it will do. And so some people are saying, well, you should share the prompt, but you still have to use the bot, right? But a custom bot is essentially these two things. It's a prompt that you've written with detailed instructions, plus a knowledge base, like, oh, I want you to focus on chapter 2, or here's the Constitution. You don't always have to do this. None of the prompts I've given you so far have a knowledge base. Well, that's not true. I think the custom bot one does, but I'll show you how I did that. All right.
And Jose, sorry,
Yes.
do you still want to show your meta prompt? Because that could help people get
Yeah,
started.
I'll get to that. I don't want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
sorry. Okay.
no, no, it's okay. No,
Sorry.
because on the one hand, that's going to make this a lot easier. But I actually
It's
want you to.
cheating.
It's cheating. Well, not cheating. I think intellectually, right? Just like with our students, I think writing. You should write one really good long prompt, if nothing else, to demonstrate to you that prompt writing is writing, and it's critical thinking, and it's hard, and your students should be right. It's a great. You'll think of an assignment that does this. And then, yes, I'll show you how to make it easier and when that's useful. Let me give you a couple of examples, and before I show you how to actually build it, because as I said, the technology is easy. This is what's tricky, right? So this is a custom bot for a course in Auckland in Australia. So the assignment for students is, I want you to come up with a marketing plan for the local football club, right? So students will generally do things like sell more tickets, right? That's not a marketing plan, right? That's not specific enough. And so what she did was she created an AI bot that could help them. And so it's like I brought in an expert, only my expert can talk individually to each student. So she called this expert Jack. So so she wrote a series of instructions, right? So don't give students the answer. Ask them questions to make their marketing plan more specific, right? She basically dumped her course, right? Her course assignment into the bot and her syllabus, her learning goals. And then she uploaded a knowledge base, which was, well, you have to know something about football and marketing and the Auckland Football Club. So she put all of the press releases. And again, that's not as hard as it sounds. You just have it search for press releases, and you say, yeah, include all of that in the knowledge base. Right? Notebook LM makes this super easy. So all of the press releases about the football club, so you know something about the football club, and you know something about marketing, and and then instructions not to give students the answer. Boom, you have a bot. And students loved this. I love this quote. He's like you, but in the screen, right? So that's what, right? So that's the idea. But you could use this to say, oh, I want to, create a simulation to run a nuclear power plant, run an experiment, practice buying a car, right? Improve a service, right? These are all, so again, this is the part that I think is hard, right? What are the things I want my students to do? Oh, I want you to secure capital for your business. I want you to do a lesson plan for a class. And then I can add in the bot, oh, but your class has a student who is dyslexic, or you're a student who's deaf, or a student who's disruptive, or whatever, right? You have an oddball, or somebody who's really advanced, right? And so now, after you've written it, it says, oh, your lesson plan is really good, but here is a way that it might be better, or have you thought about this? And so I have to think in advance, right? I have to think in advance, what is it that I want students to do? Where are they going to encounter the difficulty? That's the pedagogy piece. And so all of that is the part that's the thinking piece. AI can help you with that, but it can't really do that for you. Okay, so let's build a bot. All right. So the actual way that you do this is, so I'm going to give you 3 different options, and let me get the chat open so I can dump them. So the first is, right, the one you probably know. You go to ChatGPT, and see under GPTs. So I will put this in the chat, right? So that you all know what ChatGPT is, and so you have this. But if you click on that link, or you go to ChatGPT, you don't need a paid account. Although you can't build a GPT without a paid account. You can use them, right? So that's why Mike Caulfield's GPT is available, right? So you can see over on the left side of my screen, you see chat at the top, projects, but then you see GPTs, right? So there you see, I just used Mike Caulfield's deep background, so that shows up. And so you could explore GPTs. So the first thing to do is to say, is there already a GPT for critical thinking or Socrates or whatever it is. And so I'm now going to, explore the GPT, and it will say, oh, look, now again, with these, I don't know what the prompt is because I didn't write this, right? But I can see, oh, somebody else has already done organic chemistry, chemical bonds, whatever it is that I want to do. So it's worth it to see, oh, somebody else has already done this and I could try it out. But if you want to create your own GPT, you have to do plus create over there, and you do have to pay for that, right? So you could do this in ChatGPT. Another place you can do this for free is in Poe. So here is Poe, and I know that Cassandra has a list of all of the places you can do this, and so I'll just let her
just sent
do
in the
that.
chat. Yeah, yeah.
Great. So here again, you can explore. So first, what has somebody else already done, and then create. So if I hit on create, right, it gives me some choices of bots, and then I can go and I have to give it a name, right, or a type. There's the name. I have to give it a description, right, and then there's the behavior, right, and this is where again you can choose the model, right. So if I want to get consistency, oh, it's thinking, but I could choose which model, but then notice here's the prompt, right. So this is where you copy and paste that prompt you've been working on for hours. Right? Copying into here is easy. But that's the hard work was writing your prompt. And then there's a knowledge base, right? So I could add sources, right? PDFs, websites, and then a greeting message, right? I also like Boodlebox. The reason I like Boodlebox, it's the same process right here. See at the top it says Bot Builder. You do have to log in. You do need an account, I think, to build bots. Your students don't need them to play them. It's not expensive, and I think as a campus tool, right, it's a usage thing. But when I go to Bot Builder, you can see there's I'm going to actually go to this because I showed you that one. So this is the same prompt that you saw before, right? So all I did was copy and paste this prompt here, right? And then it asks me for a knowledge base, and I didn't give it one because it worked pretty well, right? I could have put the Constitution, or I could have put a book on macroeconomics. There are things I could have done here, but I didn't need to because the bot works pretty well. And then, right, so it has little different tabs. It asks me for a picture if I want, an alias, description, a greeting, right? That's easy though. Right, so you'll click on buttons, you'll look around, you click on buttons. To me, the hardest part by far are the instructions, right? That's the intellectual creative part. And then once I do that, I can test it, I can publish it, and when I do that, my students will get so I'm going to actually click on share, that's all I have to do. I'm going to copy the prompt, and I'm going to put it here. So you saw what I did, hopefully, right? So if you click on that, I think you have to log in, but it's free. But all you have to do now, right, is I publish, I click on the link, and I could make a QR code out of that. But I can share that with students. But it also means that on the back end, I can go in and I can see what students are doing, right? I can go in and see, aha, students, were asking this question, they got stuck on X, right? They did whatever. So let me stop there, right? So the deployment of a custom bot, in my view, is pretty easy, right? So Bonnie, I think Notebook LM was going to be my suggestion too, right? Because you could just upload all of those, and then people could interact with it as they want, and you can provide instructions as needed. But then you can share that publicly, and people can say, "Oh, I ask a question." Yeah, it probably does. Is there one that does 600? There must be. My guess is they just will charge you for that. There's got to be there's because that's right. This is what businesses are doing all the time. Yeah, then it's the number of files. Yeah. Other questions about so the deployment piece here, I think is not that hard, and I would encourage you to think more about right the testing and the kinds of things you could do with a bot, rather than, because this, right, you can see all I had to do was, the way I built that in 30 seconds is I just copy my prompt. Once I have the prompt, this is easy. I also have, if you really want, there's this bot showcase, which I'm sure Cassandra's on, and a number of people that you've had here too. I'll put this link here. But it includes a bot to help you make bots, which then outputs the kind of instructions. So it'll actually ask you questions about your instructions that will help you make better bots.
I wonder if anyone took on the challenge of building a bot live as and if you are new to it, did anyone build something? Share with us in the chat.
Yeah,
Or
and let me
started
talk.
to.
Yeah, and Mark's question's a good one. So, right, so one of the things, yeah, there's a whole bunch of these. So the issue, and we're again, remember, we're in the Ask Jeeves phase, Alta Vista phase of the internet. So at some point, your LMS, if it doesn't already, Canvas and Blackboard, I think, have made it available, but not every campus has purchased it. But you'll be able to do this inside of Blackboard, right? And that will take care of the access issues. So we're in the middle of those negotiations. I mean, I think almost every campus right now is in the middle of some weird negotiation with, either Gemini or Blackboard or somebody about how much functionality they're going to give and where students will be able to. So for now, right, I mean, the GPTs should be free for students, but then you can't see what's happens on the back end. But again, if you write your prompt in a Word document, right? And you think carefully about what the work document, what the bot should do, you'll be able to put it in new platforms later, right?
We have a question, Jose, about using AI to help with the prompts. So last night my students were building bots, and that question came up. Actually, they didn't
Yeah.
ask me. They were asking each other, "Can we use AI for this?" What do you think about that?
Yeah, so let me do that. So let me do one more thing, and then I'll do that. I'll answer that
Yes.
question. So this is my preliminary taxonomy for the kinds of things you could do with bots, right? So tutoring, right? So specific help. And again, I would think of this as I could give it for one assignment. I could give it for one student, right? You're having, again, it doesn't take me that long to write some customized instructions. Here's the student's last 3 papers, help them do better with semicolons, whatever. But I could also create a course TA, right? So taking your course and your syllabus, that kind of thing. It could be assignment specific. You could have a time management bot, right? Write some instructions, give it some information. I've talked about simulations, right, or feedback. Customized bots for a student, right? Having students do this, as Cassandra does, or have it be the assignment itself or the assessment. So think about this. Instead of saying, so I could ask an AI, write me 50 versions of the midterm that are all of the same difficulty with the same numbers of questions, blah, blah, blah. Or I could say, and I could even say, then I want you to, come up with a grading rubric. I could do all sorts of things. Or I could just say, you are an assessment bot, right? You are Einstein, right? And you're going to test students on thermodynamics based upon the information in chapter 6. Here is my rubric. Create questions of appropriate difficulty. If the students are getting frustrated, make the questions easier. I don't care how long it is, but make sure everybody gets to the standard, right? Mastery learning. And then when they're done, you put a grade in the grade book, right? So the students, instead of taking a midterm, they would talk to Einstein, my bot, right? There's the bot itself is the assessment because I can control the environment. There's another example I may have even gotten from this intergenerational. There's an assignment for students, right? Build a bot to talk to your 80-year-old self. This is a moderation bot. This is from these guys at Carnegie Mellon who've built Sway to help students talk to each other about difficult issues. I'll put that in the notes in a minute. This is a bot from a professor who included his Myers-Briggs because he wanted it to talk more like him. So it's a course bot, technically, but notice he gave it these weird instructions, right? You're an alien from the Eagle Nebula looking to find where DNA originated in the galaxy, right? So it's going to take on a specific weird role when it plays with students in his advanced medical bioinformatics class. And it has his personality because he gave it that in his CV as well as all the content. Kyle, you saw last time, who calls his pals, and he's turned his course into a series of bots. But one caution. So this Harvard study came out a few weeks ago. They had 930 students in first year accounting, and they built a bot for the class. So about half the students are like, yeah, this is cool, and they used it for interesting things. Only 6% of students used it to do calculations, which is interesting. But to me, the more important part is that only 12% became power users. That students were given this great tool, but they didn't know how to use it. Or they thought maybe it's cheating, right? So if you're going to build a course bot, you have to help students learn how to use it, right? You have to, first day of class, everybody take out the bot. Okay, put it on your phone, whatever. Here's how do we get to it? Make sure everybody has it. Now, let's have it do a simple task, like put all of the deadlines for the course into my calendar with a notification. Then create a study schedule for each of those, right, that fits in with my schedule, and put those in my calendar. Start a week in advance, right, whatever. You know yourself, tell it a little bit about how you like to work, and tell it, maybe I have the students right. So you're an expert in time management, right? Because that'll improve its answer. You're an expert in time management. Help me set up a schedule for this class to do my studying, right? So that might be a good use on the first day of class for how to get students to use the bot, because otherwise they don't know, right? Let me skip this because last one. So here's the question. So the question I was asked is, could I use the AI to do this itself? So there are two ways to do this. One is an agent and the other is a meta prompt. So if you look at the screen, there is my prompt. So I went to GenSpark. I did this in ChatGPT as well as GenSpark. I'll put the results in the chat. So I think GenSpark was way better at this than ChatGPT. But again, look at the prompt. So I was at a university in Saudi Arabia that teaches mostly petroleum engineering, which I don't know about. So I said, what's a topic that you teach? And they gave me Bingham Plastic Model, which I don't know what that is. And I said, okay, so live, I said, so create and deploy an interactive superhero themed game to teach this through visual simulation to college students in both English and Arabic. And that's all I did. Because I didn't have to write the prompt. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to deploy it. I did have to transfer it to GitHub at some point. But I asked for instructions for that. But if you click on the link, it should work, right? You can see on the upper right, there's a little thing that says Arabic, English. You can change languages, right? You can click on the theory. There's a simulator. You can go on a mission. You can take a quiz. Notice I didn't do any of that. I didn't ask for a page with theory, a page with a simulator. I didn't ask for any of that, right? I just said what's on the screen, right? And it did it. ChatGPT might ask you a couple of questions, right? If you're using a really good reasoning model. So that's using an agent, right? So the agent will not only reason and go through the steps, it can actually deploy the tool itself as a bot, or in this case, as a little simulation game. The other way to do this is with a meta prompt. So I've put this on the screen. It's also on my custom bot page. So I will, where did I put that? I'll put that here in the, again, all of these are on my same, they're just different tabs under my website. But I have a thing on meta prompts. So here you'll see, if you, again, this is longer than you probably thought. This is even the meta prompt is long, right? But the meta prompt says, I want to create a simulation to help my students learn, right? And it's giving it the goal matters. In this case, part of how I increase accuracy, start by researching academic books, journals, sites, produce a list of historical, whatever, scholarly information, because then I have my knowledge base for the game, right? I'm having it do that work for me. I can then verify the list and say, great, include all of that in the knowledge base, right? Use those or don't. How long the game should take, you still have to do that manually. It's going to take place in class. It's a homework assignment. It's in place of the midterm. And then the last sentence is important, right? Write an internal developer-facing bot that any AI chat bot can use to build the simulation. right? So I have to tell it specifically, and I had to work on that language a bit. So you may, right, and it may have changed depending on which AI you use, but right, an internal developer-facing, right? I had to think of that. So that's a meta prompt. So it will now do the bot for me. So the example that I use here is I wanted to create a game. So we're watching Wolf Hall, the last season of Wolf Hall a few months ago, and I thought, oh, how about a Thomas Cromwell game where you try not to get killed, right? You don't want to, right? You try to survive. And so I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. And the problem is that I don't know enough about gaming to do this, right? So, um, so I couldn't figure out, well, how does the game work, right? I get historical sources. I understand how that works. So down at the bottom, let's see, I think I put this, where did I put this? So I had an idea for a game, but I didn't know how to do gameplay. So when I ran this, I said, okay, I want to create a Thomas Cromwell simulation. I want the goal of the game is for students to learn about, Tudor history, but the specific challenge is to not get executed, right? So it came up with a set of rules for gameplay, right? Oh, you get morality points, King Henry points, and nobility points. We'll give you 70 points each, and then if you fall below 30 on any one of those, you get executed. Right? I never would have thought of that because I'm not a gamer, right? So it's useful for the actual gameplay part to do some of that. So if you get stuck or things aren't working, so I wouldn't start this first. It wouldn't be the first thing I do. We don't need to talk about 3D worlds yet. But to me, this is the right. Um, are there concepts, right? The intellectual pedagogical work is a bit that interests me. I know Casandra may be thinking, we're supposed to learn how to do custom bots. It's like, okay. But again, I think the actual deployment of the bots is right. I mean, if it was too fast, it's on my webpage, and Cassandra has a zillion tools for that. But to me, what are the tasks? What are the things that students could do? And so I actually use these in class, right? Um, I have students play them in class. That gives me a nice big trial group, and then I figure out, aha, okay, um, that's what we can do. All right,
We have about 5 minutes left.
let's
There
do
are a couple of
questions.
questions now, yeah, in the Q&A. Some about bots, some about other stuff, but if there are any that you want to take. We had a couple about resources to be used and intellectual property, but I think many helped out. Shelley helped out in the chat there that OER is very useful for that. But I'll let you look at.
Yeah, I mean, you could do right. One of the things you could do is you could take an OER resource, right, OpenStax, and then you could, right, I mean, they have an AI tool that uses OpenStax, but you could create a custom textbook, right, taking the picks that you want, but also, with adding a particular theory, or here are my students, right, my students want more. I have lots of women engineers. I want, prioritize examples from the 19th century, from women, from underrepresented, whatever, your student population. All right. One of the things that I do, I use a reusable course prompt. So I take who's in my class, right, by generic type, right? So I have, it's 30% women, it's 40% whatever. I have just people of different religious backgrounds, different linguists, whatever. And then I create so I want you to make sure that my course is inclusive, but I give it the specific, right? So I want to, here are the kinds of students I have in my class, first year students, non-majors, whatever. And then it's a course profile. And I reuse that for everything I do. And I can use it for bots. I can use it for checking assignments or whatever. All right. So a good question. If you make the bot on ChatGPT and students play it on the free version, will it change the bot's responses? So if you set the which model, so that's actually a question. Somebody here may know that. If I'm a paid ChatGPT subscriber, then I think I can set the model for the GPT. I'm not sure you can if you're a free user, but you can't make a GPT anyway. So Poe would be your best bet. And with Poe, you can set the model. And again, the reason I set the model is because then you get more consistency. And everybody has to play using that model, and then you would test it using that model. And so to Mark, yeah, so I do think, right, so I think there are two, yeah, there are two answers to the variability. One is, um, right, a longer prompt will reduce variability because you can start to think about, okay, don't, here are the things I want you to do, don't do that. But yeah, changing model definitely changes. And I also find, right, that presidential simulation game that I've played a lot, but, ChatGPT 5 today decided to do something else. It decided to, to think more than I wanted it to.
And yeah, there was a question, a little bit like mine, from Gordon about using deep research or AI to help develop a game, game rules. Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, so in general, I don't want to use a super reasoning model for gameplay because A, that will change answers and it will slow it down. But using it in your research is a great idea, right? It'll have it think more deeply, have it look for other prompts. Has anybody else done a similar kind of simulation? Help me anticipate how students might try to cheat or mess with this. Right? If you're really super clever about this, you could have it actually play your game. You could say, here is the prompt. I want you to run 100 simulations, right? Be 100 different students. Some of you were smart, some of you were not, some of you are right, whatever. Be a wide variety of students at different kinds of universities, play my game in different ways, try to beat the system and tell me where the problems are. And then give it the prompt and have it actually play your game or test your bot. And again, you would test the bot as a prompt. Unless you're using an agent, in which case it can go and just actually go do that.
Amazing. So we're almost up on the hour, and I know the next teaching with AI is going to come out soon. It's going to have a chapter on custom bots. And Jose's so generous in sharing a million different prompts and resources on his website. So keep an eye on that as well. Getting a lot of thank yous in the chat. And I think some of you are going to go out and build bots after this for the first time. Yes. And it's for
Yay.
the pedagogy too. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yep, there's the new book is out in a couple of months, the Teaching with AI second edition, and it does have a new chapter, a whole new chapter on custom bots.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Happy bot building. Thanks so much.
All
And
right,
the
good luck.
meeting notes have resources on future showcases and an exit ticket. And thank you again to Dominique here and Innovative Academy for donating. So if you fill out the exit ticket, 2 of them by raffle are going to get a copy of Jose's book. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So yeah, and feedback is good. The exit ticket is useful because doing this in an hour, I would have loved to give you more time to actually create, but
Yeah, we need 6 hours, but
you've
we're
all heard
not.
this. We all say this to our students. If I had more time, it's like I try not to, but yes.
Yes, but I'm glad you saved the meta prompt until the end. So you got us thinking
Yes, now
how
you can
to
all go
use it.
cheat.
Yes. Thank you so much. Okay.